I'm about to see a movie I can barely believe is real, and now I can almost taste it. Batman vs. Superman has a ton of controversy surrounding its trailers for good reason, but it isn't a standalone movie. Whether you want to face it or not, Man of Steel is the prequel to Batman vs. Superman. And Man of Steel took a lot of notes from Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, which was followed up by one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, The Dark Knight. But how do these two origin stories stack up to one another? That's what I'm here to find out. My name's Ben and this is Chompt Down Reviews. To start off, we have Batman Begins, a movie I instantly loved but soon forgot about because of the huge shadow casted by The Dark Knight. Batman Begins sequel was, as I'm sure you know, pretty darn good, but how was the first film? Using my 5-point system, let's see how this movie stacks up against Man of Steel. I'll be breaking down these movies into 5 categories: heroes and villains, surrounding cast, direction, themes, and impact. And this is my show, so I get to decide what the categories are. Don't fight me on it. Okay, forget Ben Affleck for a minute and remember a time when Christian Bale was the man as Batman. At first, people didn't like his voice, but now this is the iconic Batman voice.
Where were the other drugs going?
Now that is just called the Batman voice. It's iconic and everyone tries to copy it, including somebody.
It's time you learned what it means to be a man.
And that sure as heck didn't come from these guys. But Christian Bale is obviously the kind of actor who gets into his role physically and mentally, and this was no exception. He plays both Playboy Bruce Wayne and the character of Batman very well. He goes up against 2 villains in this movie: the Scarecrow, who doesn't get enough screen time, but is important for the plot. But the time he is on screen, Murphy slays. His mask is simple until his drugs kick in, and then there's maggots all over it, and it is just terrifying. But Batman also faces Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, or somebody needs to make up their mind about this one. See, Batman thought he was dead, but he kind of juked him out using a decoy, but Batman lit his house on fire, so who really can you trust? While both of these villains are great, well casted, and ripped straight from the comic book, let's see how Batman deals with them, which is very important. Scarecrow gets a dose of his own medicine and then gets locked away just to appear in all of the movies in this trilogy, which is kind of awesome. And with Raj, Batman didn't kill him, but he could have saved him, and this is really important, and I'm gonna save this for the conclusion. Just remember this. Starting with the parents, we only get a little bit of Bruce's mom, but Papa Wayne is the shining example of a good man. So that's pretty cool to see with the little that we do see of him. Michael Caine as Alfred, the family butler who raises Bruce, is so good and has so many important lines to the story. He's brilliant, and good luck topping that, Jeremy Irons, although I'm sure he can try. Bruce's love interest is played by Katie Holmes, who I don't think is really great, especially since Maggie Gyllenhaal is such a welcomed replacement, but she's actually really disliked in her role generally. Although she's really uninteresting, I don't think she hurt the movie. But then there's Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, and let's just forget that he's God for a second, he's still pretty great. Aside from Katie Holmes, this movie really set up its sequel with a great cast, which is pretty awesome. When Batman Begins came out, Christopher Nolan wasn't super well known except for his movie Memento, which is a real trip. Seriously, if you have any stoner friends and you haven't heard of this movie before, please ask them about it. But Memento was a movie that story was told out of order, and Batman Begins kind of follows the same plot structure. It skips around in time from plot point to plot point, but in a meaningful way. Christopher Nolan is a brilliant director, and even though this isn't the best in the series, here it's still masterful and sets The Dark Knight up to be something really special. And the score by Hans Zimmer is the same way. It's masterful in this movie, and it only builds on itself as the movies progress. The biggest theme here is really Bruce overcoming his fears and becoming more than a man, a symbol. It's perfect for Batman and makes the heavy, dark overtones of this movie warranted. Also, this theme carries over to the sequels and doesn't get boring, so I'd say well done. Like I said before, I think a lot of people have forgotten this movie because of how good its sequel is. But people legitimately loved this movie when it came out. There's so many moments that are just so Batman.
Where are you?
Here.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
And it was the first dark superhero movie of its kind, and while there's things that it improves on, it was really shocking for a lot of people. The darkness that this movie proved was possible can be felt in comic book movies to this day. Nolan created a great piece of work that set off a reaction in a lot of comic book movies, and it led to an incredible sequel. Batman Begins gets an A from me, but how does it stack up against Man of Steel as an origin story? You're gonna have to tune in to find out. Give me a subscribe so you definitely get a notification, but I'm gonna put a link right here as soon as that video gets uploaded. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. I'm on Patreon if you want to check that out. And I really hope you like this video and tune in next time. This is Ben, and thanks for joining the Chompt Down. See you soon.